Hello, hello.
Oh, we're here. It worked. First time. I know what needs to be done to make
Ah,
it work. I now
what?
understand the
Yeah.
formula. So when I accept your invite, I need to say no to camera and sound, and then it will pop up again with just microphone, and then I say yes to that, and then it weirdly comes up with, "Do you want camera and sound again?" And you cancel that, and then it just kind of like goes in. So yeah, I found the my way around the glitchiness of circa 1997 communication apps.
Well, I'm glad about that. I'm glad about that. The ultimate efficiency shall therefore prevail. Um, yeah. So, what's the topic of today?
Is it episode 15?
It
Episode
is episode.
15.
Yeah.
Episode 15. So I think it's worth giving an honourable mention to what they're deemed child geniuses or prodigies or people that are extremely young with extreme talent relative to their age. And then maybe we can kind of go on to a wider talk about intelligence because, how that's quantified and things. I think that would be a good thing. Also, listeners, I hope you enjoyed the gluttonous festivities of Satan getting his claws in you. um,
It's still
yeah,
ongoing though. It's
yeah,
not
it's
going to
still, yeah, it's still
late
days
January
left.
because of the Orthodox Christmas as well, which I think finishes I think it finishes the 7th. Is it the 7th or the 6th Orthodox Christmas?
I mean, it would obviously make more sense for it to be the sixth, of course.
Oh, I think it's 7th. Although 7's also a magic number as well.
Yeah,
I
to
think
be fair.
on
Let's have a look. Let's have a look at when Orthodox Christmas ends. Right.
very glad the weather here is finally cool, man. And it's on my last day as well. I really hope it stays cloudy so I can have a wander around.
It is
Because my
indeed
ankle
the seventh. It is
is
indeed
it
the
the
yeah.
there we go. Well, yeah, yeah.
It's not really like
Yeah.
even in Germany, like Christmas Day is what we call Christmas Eve in England as well. As
I
is the
watched.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the case for most people. But I
Yeah.
think in the kind of atypical Western nations with more kind of economic leverage, they just essentially fast integrate a time frame to the whole festive period for, for consumerism to take its course. There's fucking all these extra days, isn't there? Eve Day, Boxing Day, and then you've got like the Black Friday sales just before that, which expanded out into Cyber Monday, Travel Tuesday. The New Year's sales, the Christmas sales, and then New Year's Day, and then the whole Christmas thing again for the Orthodox side of the world, which is always a good thing. Like honestly, like next time, just for the parties, I've done this once before, but I transferred my being to Georgia after the kind of 25th, 26th, and New Year's to then have a repeat of the same festive period because obviously all their parties will kick off continue up until that 7th and a little bit over that as well. So it's a good way to get in like two Christmases into one break.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get, several in. Um,
So child geniuses.
yeah, and
Well, that in itself is debatable, isn't it? What discerns whether what is genius? What is it?
right.
Is a genius?
Um,
Should they be
so if
given tools?
if you're asking me the question, like, I would
Okay.
once again, I'd define it as I don't know, a capability beyond yours, or just like a otherworldly capability, I suppose, like things that
Oh, doesn't
most
make sense.
people can't do, like if you're in like, I don't know, the 0.2 or 0.1%, for example, or 0.01% even, because I suppose if one in a that see, it's hard to, like, if you're a kid that's in like a 1 in 1,000 group, so that means that there's, potentially hundreds of you in, a million people. It's like, yeah, that's like maybe prodigious. It's like top tier. It's elite. But, like, what do we deem as genius? And
also, it's got to be relative to the population, hasn't it? If you just took, if you're saying 1 in every 1,000 children should be considered prodigious if they excel above the rest, well, what if you took 100,000 of the thickest children on the planet? Then to be at the top of that chain is to be at the bottom of a chain in a relatively more normal society, isn't it?
exactly,
The thing.
So I think it needs to be looked at on a global scale. So it's
And I
like,
think to prevent us involving autistic people, um, these individuals that are considered genius, i.e., having the ability to do something that's just not feasible for 99% of those around them, they would also have to have, at the very least, the competency of everyone else around them. So you can't, like, for example, in my opinion, state someone as a genius if, for instance, they can't tie their fucking shoelace, but they're able to to calculate mathematical equations at a rate that's just not even feasible for those at like Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or stuff like that. But yeah, if they can't tie their shoelace, they shouldn't be allowed they shouldn't be allowed to be categorized under that banner, because there are lots of people that are just fucking just like complete tards and just sitting at home on the computer, sweating kids, never leaving, unable to integrate with the rest of society. But then at the same time, they're fucking like able to do something miraculous.
so
Balanced.
if you're physically incapable, for example, but mentally adept, would that
I would
rule?
no, I would count no, because the average person who is just physically capable, just some normal individual that can walk, just like everyone else, um, they've had to kind of they've spent time doing other things that someone without legs can't do, and therefore that person without legs generally they're probably going to spend more time catering to their kind of their mental foresight and focus, and therefore it's not it's an anomaly. It's a situation where someone is given extra time at certain things because they have a lack of something else. So that's why I mean the base of it all should just be someone that's just like normal, that has the same opportunities as everyone else and is capable of doing all the things everyone else can do. But in addition to that, they're also fucking exceptional at something beyond comprehension of most. And that's what genius should be.
Okay. So what about so so you would say potentially that somebody, let's just say that they showed this level of quote unquote genius at a very young age, to the point where having the lack of physical capability wouldn't necessarily even had time to manifest in a sense that it would take away from the whole. Let's just say somebody who's in a wheelchair at 3 years old but is already just showing like prodigious abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Do they get ruled out? Because even a 3-year-old that's fully able-bodied, like,
I
there's not
do. I
there's
would
not
rule
much
it.
intellectually that
I would rule it out. I know what you're saying, but I would rule it out because a lot of children develop quite rapidly. Certain cultures, children can develop more rapidly at a younger age, but then it kind of fizzles out into their teens, and other people play catch up. That's just the case at school, isn't it? Certain children might start off with an inability to kind of perform in just math or English or whatever, and then as time progresses, they accelerate and overcome that. And the individuals that were the kind of A graders have the opposite approach because everyone develops at a different level, right? So I think you have to measure by the end game, and the end game is when children become adults, that transition from being children into being a kind of fully fledged, fully developed, both mentally and physically adult. And then you can measure, okay, so what did they achieve up to this point? Because otherwise, so long as there's still that development in progress, you can't really discern how they're going to turn out.
So, in regards to child prodigies, so what we're saying is, or what your premise is that, different children, can, mature at different ages for different reasons, and therefore, in essence, you're saying that a child prodigy cannot actually be fully quantified because they might just
No. That's what I'm saying. No.
Okay.
No. Your example was with respect to someone that develops a disability, and therefore they're a physical disability, and therefore they're more inclined to spend time that a child of that age that's normal, quote unquote, wouldn't be spending. So they find out that they're unable to walk from the age of 4. You said, well, what if their genius ability developed before the physical impairment? And what I'm saying is, well, it's just not possible to measure. Because everyone develops at different rates and there's a fluctuation, and people end up losing abilities, people ascend, people ascend, decline, etc. So, if they then have that impairment and they do develop a genius status, or they retain it, it's not fair because they've been spending way more time inside playing chess or video games or whatever it is that their interest is involved, about. A lot of people could do the same thing if they didn't have other options. If they couldn't go outside and play and their only option was to sit and read all day, then people, other children would accelerate at equal basis potentially. If they were spending fucking 20 hours a day reading or on the computer or decoding, etc., because they're unable to go out and play football with the kids because they've got no fucking legs. So it's not really a fair way to kind of judge. That's why you've got to judge on the last day of childhood or the first day of adulthood.
So
literally, the last
I
or first.
wouldn't personally, somebody who's studied to become knowledgeable, I wouldn't call them a genius personally, because it's, to me, genius is something that I would deem as like an innate ability. It's just almost like
Yeah. I agree.
So,
Okay, so we did that.
So it's an innate
Innate.
ability to do things that are exceptional. Also, how I would quantify just like intelligence in general is, and obviously there's many different types, but obviously there's many different genres of intelligence. But what I would say is that the ability to process information efficiently and correctly. And that can be many things. There are some people who can fucking tell just from the way your fucking eyebrow twitched exactly what emotion you're feeling. I suppose that could be seen as EI or EQ, emotional intelligence, for example. Whereas other people just have an innate understanding of how things work, but have a really poor EQ. Like people like engineers that can just fucking, I don't know, look at a train and almost fucking see it with X-ray vision and just understand all the components within it. And I suppose that's also a form of intellect or genius, but
No, it's not. I would say it's neither because it contradicts. So if you spent all of your life indoors programming computers and you became the best programmer in the world, but you hadn't achieved anything else, you ended up being 150 kilos, sweaty, unhealthy, you didn't have an ability to interact with other human beings because you were socially inept. You're unable to walk to the shopping centre, you're unable to, discern all the other aspects of life. No gears towards philosophy or history or anything like that. Does that make you intelligent? I don't think so. I think intelligence is the best. I would define it as the ultimate form of equilibrium. Someone
right,
that has
okay.
the best form of balance possible. So they've got their fingers in all different pots and they're good at lots of things and at the best of the best example of that. Because, like I said, I think anyone, if they just focus their attention, they didn't have any fucking disability at any subject matter, they should be pretty fucking good at it if that's all that they were doing. And I think most people would be. You know, it's like if you take Asian students as one example, you know, in places like India, it's considered like, you know, you have to learn law or you have to study medicine or engineering. For most families, that's considered like what should be done in India, at least in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Pakistan, and I'm sure many other countries. But so, you know, kids will sit and they just fucking memorize. It's the memory game. A lot of school systems still have that, you know, just reciting and memorizing for the exam, and then they're given accolades. They're validated as doctors and all this shit, but they don't want to be there. They don't want to do it,
Yeah.
and actually interested in any things. And honestly, if we go into medicine, we know full well that most
It's
doctors are a bunch of cunts. They're completely
they are
useless, which they
yeah,
wear masks and
intelligence and being a
put
doctor
poison in people's
do not go
veins.
hand in hand. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so, but that can be applied to so many subject matters. I mean, you know, most people, if you walked into a Canary office tower and just, you know, went into the HSBC building, for example, any department, you'd just be there with a load of fucking brainwashed morons that have just catered to the normative approach to life. They've just
Hen-
been funneled into this system of just, you know, reciting examinations, you know, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD,
yeah.
the internship at the right, you know, it's not. I
I mean,
don't
hence
see
one
it as,
analogy. There's not a single genius in any of those positions. Like it just
except maybe the Uber boss, maybe, but not a genius necessarily.
yeah.
But
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it's possible that, for instance, somebody that is a genuine genius could get into, you know, some kind of chemistry or pharmacology and that kind of outer, more scientific branch of medicine, maybe even surgery. But I think that would be the base level of medicine that a genius would be involved in. We're talking about general practitioners, GPs. Okay, fair. If it maybe like a research oncologist could
no,
potentially
I
have
don't think so
genius.
either. I think that's relative. I think environment conditions people to have different interests, and society determines that certain subject matters are considered more important. So if you take an oncologist or a surgeon, you know, that's considered as being above that of a general practitioner, right? But that's only because we've created that. It doesn't necessarily mean the work's more, because that's always relative. If you take an interest in something, usually it's not very difficult. You know, things just fly over your head because that's what you enjoy and that's what you love. So just if we take a surgeon and GP, it doesn't necessarily mean that surgeons had a harder time getting to where they are because they might really enjoy that subject. They might, you know, we all have different interests, and they might not be able to do something else that a GP can do, or, you know, a fucking sportsman or an engineer, or, you know, or neither of those. A homeless guy on the street might be able to do things that are more novel than all of them combined. So, but I think we should kind of we should separate intelligence and genius.
Oh, absolutely. They're two different things because, you know, intelligence is like, as I said, you know, intelligence is like a genre that people can be intelligent in certain ways and not intelligent in other ways. So to you, a genius is somebody who's is like a holistic thing, somebody who's an all-rounder who could potentially be good at anything that they put their mind to, or absolutely exceptional at anything that they put their mind to would probably be more accurate, or
I,
exceptional in many
I
different
think
things. How
we
would
have to
you?
bring I think we have to bring another word into the equation, like morality as well, because although this might extend the debate, I think it's very easy to be well rounded in a society if you conform immorally to the things that the system expects you to conform to, irrespective of whether they're good. And I think it's very difficult for people to be well rounded at the higher echelons and retain a sense of morality, because we know for a fact that if you submit to the will of the state, you get rewarded, right? So
Mm,
to get to a position that someone else has got to by just tick boxing whatever it is the state tells them to do, I'm not saying those people aren't capable. They might be very capable, but also they're saving a lot of time and energy and kind of outlay from just, not challenging things that are wrong. So if you take like, just because it's so topical, like the 2019 to 2021, totalitarian scenario, if you had two hedge funds, right, or no, fuck it, let's just take two GPs as we started on that. And one GP, they both have the exact same background. They both, let's say, went to, I don't know, fucking Warwick and got first class honors, blah, blah, blah. They're the same age, same, they're both women, like whatever. And one of them just refused to sacrifice their principles throughout, but still achieve the same result, the same status, if you like. I would say that commands this kind of, the status of intelligence over the other. The other's a cop out. The other one's fake. It's like two products. If you take two Nike products, obviously this is not a particularly great example. Is the fake is probably produced by the same individual, and one's just a branded entity. But just for the sake of extending the conversation more than it should be, one, they both might have the same logo and be the same color, but one's come from the official factory. One is really the origin of the debate, the true intelligence, the true product, and the other is just pretending to be. Because when shit hits the fan, I think this is a good way to discern which human beings are capable. When the shit hits the fan, when there are stresses, when there are scenarios where you have to make extremely important life choices, the people that bottle are the fake ones. They're the ones that get chucked out of the game, because it is just a game, right? They play the short term and they lose the long term. And I think that's a good way to kind of discern who is more intelligent, because I mean, it's also a game of that beyond life, is it not? So what we see here extends into other realms that we may not be able to comprehend, but it should be measured within this life.
Yeah, I definitely believe that morality and intelligence should be intertwined. And I think somebody who makes the right decisions and who has the conviction to continue to make the right decisions under duress, under, whatever, subjugation or whatever, definitely should be commended. Back to child prodigies and something that you said about environment. And this is a case that has always stuck in my mind and fascinated me. Was a young kid from India, I believe it was, who became like a surgeon and a research scientist. He was from like a farming family, and it was like he almost just like had an innate ability to perform surgery. Just like, I've heard about these young girls in Russia that can just look at someone and know that, yep, your kidney's fucked just because you've got a fucking little dot in your eye, etc. And this kid, he actually performed surgery on his sister, and a documentary was done about him. And he was also like a normal kid that used to play, had no physical disabilities, wasn't autistic, quite emotionally mature for his age. And they ended up bringing him over to England, and he was working by the age of 7. He was working alongside like scientists in like esteemed university. I can't remember if it was Cambridge, Oxford, or somewhere. Working on cures for cancer. And like, I just find that that's the sort of person that I would deem as a genius, absolutely. And I completely agree that somebody who studied or spent lots of time, researching, it's like that's somebody who's well studied, that's somebody who's a learned person, but somebody with an innate ability to do things. Some people who, without their mum or dad, doing homework with them, just kind of just knew how to get on with things, people that are, independent, well-rounded, all of these things. I think that lends more towards genius than somebody. But that being said, you can be well studied and also be a genius because you have the ability to retain, lots of, useful information at a rate that's just not feasible for 99.9% of people. Then, I suppose there's an element of genius in that. I wouldn't say it needs to be completely holistic. It needs to be good at lots of things, but obviously,
No, I
if
wouldn't
you're
say you need to
autistic and
be good at lots
yeah,
of things. I think if there is a clear gap and things aren't balanced, so if there are really basic things that people that are highly capable at certain things are unable to do, I don't classify that as genius, because a genius, if they're so exceptional at, I don't know, like you said, medical research, but they can't fucking cook pasta. It just, there's definitely an autistic strain to that. I think at the very least they should just be able to do everything that everyone else can do, and then there's this thing which they're just fucking amazing at. Um, because otherwise, really, that's why I think it's good to make the judgment at the end of childhood if we're to judge whether someone's a child prodigy or not, because like people accelerate at different points. So he could have been, for this example that you gave, this child could have been phenomenal up until the age of 15, and then he might have just become a total dunce. So I think it's better to, given that the conversation is just based on child prodigies, we'd have to draw the line at the last day of childhood. And even that itself is, kind of up for debate, because when does, I mean, that's an artificial, that's been compounded by different states to suit their agenda. Children in one part of the world are considered to, up until the age of 14, and in other parts of the world, it's 21. I mean, it's even potentially 25 in the UK if you look at all the different things. For example, students only receive financial support at university based off of their own financial profile after the age of 25. They're considered to get help from their parents until 25 years old. But then, of course, you can drink alcohol and go to a bar at 80. I mean, what is it that truly discerns whether someone is a child or not? I think it would have to be a more of a so-called scientific background when cells stop kind of developing, and we start essentially dying. So we stop producing new tissue and whatnot. I think that would be a good line to draw. But even that can change depending on, again, the age of the individual. So, but with respect to
it's
this example, how legitimate do you think this is?
what
Because
the kid in India.
because you know as well as I do that many of these stories are just fraternal stories. They're Masonic stories to mock the public. They're farcical. It's just theatre. Some connected individual. It's a marketing ploy for the next wizards in the local temple. The idea that his kids are somehow fucking performing surgical operations at age 7. I mean, how much of it is just fucking like, it's just bullshit, isn't it? I mean, how much information can the brain process? How much information does the brain have at that age? The
Well,
context things
for a
required.
genius, a lot more than normal, and that's what makes
But
them a
that's the thing,
genius.
how is it feasible? Is that what makes a genius? Because we just don't know how it's possible.
Well,
Or
this is it.
it?
I
And
mean,
if is it not just a lie, like many things,
oh,
like
it's definitely possible to lie. Of course it
or
is.
just,
Of course it is. Absolutely, it's possible to lie. But it's also possible for people to perform feats that would be seen as beyond their years, that are beyond their years. So I've actually
so
managed to
genius
find.
contains genie, by the way, and genie is a fucking farcical magic, right? It's a
Yeah,
creation. It's an
a genie, something that yeah, I suppose grants wishes, and yeah, the genie,
yeah,
yeah, the genie in us, the magic in us, genius. Who that? That's.
potentially
But this kid is
magic
called.
us.
This kid is called Akrit Jaswal. He became the world's youngest surgeon at the age of 7. Has an IQ of 146. He was walking and talking by the time he was 10 months old. Now, that isn't that rare. Like, I'd say maybe like 1 in 20 children, can walk, and more so girls than boys, can walk, just before, or at least take a step or two. But once again, that fits your criteria because he's showing advanced physical capabilities as well. But yeah, there are definitely, certain parts of the world where, or certain, genders that, like women, like females, mature, faster at certain points in life than guys do. He started reading and writing by the age of 2, which is exceptional. Been a former preschool teacher myself. I've worked with literally hundreds of children. This is part of the reason why I've got an interest in this topic, because I'm just looking at kids, and when I see these children, and I've come across like some kids that were smart, none of them geniuses, but they were definitely ahead of their peers. And I find it quite interesting. And he was reading Shakespeare in English, which was his second language, by the time he was 5.
I don't know how this is
I'd be
legit.
confident in saying that
Honestly.
he's a genius.
I don't know how much of this is real. I read a book on past life memories, the idea that genetic memory can be transferred and then expressed, especially in children. And there's a really good book, its name slips my mind, but it's dedicated to this. And there's actually an organization which is funded from a trust from the kind of founder of this field of study. And the whole book is about, obviously the most exceptional examples of past life memory, but a lot of it is just about the fraud within it and how, so many of the cases that would be, would seem exceptional and seem legitimate after years, sometimes decades of investigation, it would just turn out that the families made it all up, and they very cleverly try to find a mechanism by which to profit from this lie. And of course, a lot of people in developing countries always find reason or ways, intelligently, you could say, to better their life and get across to the West. And academia is obviously the prime of that, as we discussed off podcast yesterday, with respect to lots of people that find gaps in the market and pretend to be pastors or pretend to be interested in Christianity or Islam and get scholarships abroad in theology courses, and in actual fact they don't give a fuck. And a lot of the time these cases prove to be fraudulent in this book, and these are people that worked at this for the professionals, the investigators, for decades, and even they were stumped in many cases. They overlooked things, and that's their profession and love and interest. So many of these people can create fiction very cleverly, very, very clever. And the idea that, how old was he? A 5-year-old is fluent in
Yep.
Shakespeare, walked 10 months, is
He was
performing
reading
surgery
Shakespeare
7
in
years
English
old.
by the time he was 5.
I just really don't. I honestly just can't. I shouldn't be dissuaded from it, but it just doesn't seem feasible based on my open understanding of how the world works. And I'm not saying there aren't geniuses, which is what the topic is, but there is a level where it just seems too ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah,
so
I mean, this is the thing. Geniuses do
so many
ridiculous
hours
things.
in the day.
They do
This
ridiculous
actually could link
things.
to past memory. This actually could link to past memory. The idea that you're born with these abilities embedded within you from the life of another.
It's innate. It's absolutely innate. Yeah, an innate ability to, to do things beyond your years. So the actual
No,
definition.
but no, I don't know. I would take it further, because innate just, it would, assume that you have some extra cylinders, right? But just the idea that at that age, there's not enough hours in the day.
But you don't need hours because your brain just knows how to process shit
But
better
how
than other
can your
people.
brain process so many high-end topics within a few years? How can you be fluent, yeah, that would be the correct word, in Shakespeare at age 5 as a Hindi speaker,
It's
and
not saying
then
that he was fluent, but
surgery
he
in
was
London?
reading it, having a comprehension, being able to pronounce English words with fairly, let's just say, with fairly good, elocution.
I
And he
just
was,
find it suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, some people might, understandably, because yeah, this kid
There
they're
any
free. They're kind of seen as, yeah, I don't know, maybe they should be, yeah, maybe we assume that there's less. Um, yeah, I think it surprises people when people from places that are poorer have, you know, exceptional abilities. I think that's often a perception, and we kind of correlate wealth with intelligence, which we absolutely know isn't the case. The amount of fucking thick rich kids is unbelievable. In fact, the amount of people, I mean, look at the amount of money that's in England on every single, like literally, and this is not even like on every single road in England, there's a millionaire. Like somebody that not necessarily somebody who's got £1 million cash in the bank, but at the very least with assets, worth like on every single,
assets?
yeah, with
Oh,
assets, you know. But loads of people just fucking, yeah, dim, people still believe in the blue and red of talk. This is just like the world, actually. Like, this can just extend to the world. It's like so many rich businessmen that are fucking clueless about the world. Like people that are multi-millionaires that just don't really know that much. They know how to make money, but they're not necessarily, intelligent people. Whereas like you have unassuming people like, a guy that wears like, like a dirty t-shirt, fucking eating pizza, playing fucking Warcraft in his basement, who's fucking ridiculously intelligent. Like, like genuinely. And he's like, they actually has an understanding of the
well,
world.
that's where the debate is. If you're sweating pizza every day and playing World of Warcraft in your mum's basement, I don't think that's intelligent.
But if
Because
it's a
if
conscious choice, so do you
I
believe
don't
that
know,
you
but
can be
that's the thing.
intelligent to have mental health issues?
No, I think if that's your conscious choice, you definitely aren't intelligent at all. If it's your conscious choice in a world with so much to offer to sit in your mum's basement and play World of Warcraft and just eat fucking pizza all day until you're fat and obese, that's not an intelligent move, is it?
No, that's not an intelligent move. Correct. But my point, when I say conscious, what I mean is that you're conscious of the fact that, so people can be conscious of the fact that they have like a mental illness. Like, some people that have psychosis know that they've got psychosis. They've got to go to their appointments. They hear the voices in their head. They know that the voices aren't real, but they can't stop hearing them. That kind of thing. So yeah, I think I didn't word it in the best way, but my point, there can be
But
people
then
who,
again, I'll go for it. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just saying that, there are people who can, unassuming, like, as I said, like some guy who's, whatever, I never had a girlfriend particularly, but he has an understanding, like like he knows that he's overweight, he knows that he has this thing that he can't stop fucking eating pizza and short and fucking chocolate digestives, but like, he's got like essentially a medical condition, a quirk, something wrong psychologically that makes him do these things. However, he also has exceptional cognitive abilities and also an understanding of his own shortcomings. So he has an awareness of himself as well as he has an awareness of himself and his issues, for example. So it's a potential. So I think there's a potential for something like that to be deemed as extremely intelligent. Once again, we're talking mainly about child geniuses, and the official, should I say, definition of a child genius is somebody that's under the age of 10 that does things that that adults, at the top of their domain are good at. So let's just say a world class architect. If there was somebody under 10 that could also do CAD to the level of a world class architect, that would be generally deemed a genius, and
That doesn't
obviously
make sense. It doesn't make sense, does it? It absolutely doesn't make any sense for a child genius
explain.
to be defined at the age of 10 because children are still developing until they stop becoming children. And as, like I said at the start, we know from schools that someone can excel and accelerate beyond their peers potentially, and then they might drop off the edge and decline, and then they're overtaken by the kids that started more slowly. So to define
But
a
at
child
that
as a
level,
prodigy before the age of 10 only is ridiculous. It's completely nonsensical, and I question why that's there. And it's also an oxymoron as well, isn't it?
I
Because a
mean,
child
is
prodigy, and then there's a
officially
stipulation that it's under 10. Child is a child until beyond the age of 10. Again, it's slightly different in different cultures, but let's say
yeah, yeah.
in.
Generally,
So
I think 18 is like a general. I think
yeah,
that's probably like the main kind of universal number, isn't it? Probably for when
um,
you officially become an adult. I think 18 is normally like in most, countries, you would have at least left high school or started college at 18 in most places. So yeah, and I'd absolutely agree that if we're talking, matter of factly, we know that, yeah, beyond 10 years old, you're still classed as a child. But the term child prodigy is generally applied to people below that age. Another thing that I would say is that generally, people that start off out the blocks as quick as what I would deem a genius are almost always absolutely going to be, way ahead of their peers when they're adults as well, because it's just they're generally going to be exceptional people because they're doing ridiculously exceptional things. And I
not
think there's like
necessarily
slight
at all.
differences,
There's
but
so many examples of fuck ups. If you take,
is it an intellectual fuck up, or is it
I
like
think
life
so.
fucks them up? I think it's life
No,
that
well,
might fuck
no,
some
no, life does not.
people up.
No, no, life does not fuck people up. People fuck themselves up. There is no such thing as life fucking people up. People have the conscious decisions to do what they want. So, for example, take Leonardo DiCaprio, right? So, obviously, he's got his head on his shoulders. As a child actor, he was very sparky. This isn't just Natalie Portman's the same. She was in that movie with Jean Rousseau. Is it Jean Rousseau? Which is the assassin movie. I forget the name of it now. But these are children that just are very advanced, I would say, intellectually, because to understand, to comprehend, and to act out is a form of what some might call intelligence. But then many of these people drop off the edge and become junkies and fucking unknowns, and they just destroy their career. In fact, many of the child actors you don't see at all today. They didn't. I mean, take what's his name? What's the Harry Potter guy? What's his name?
Oh,
Daniel
but
Radcliffe. Just
you
as those
know,
movies
okay, go
progressed,
on.
the worse he got. The Philosopher's Stone, he was a great child actor, maybe Chamber of Secrets. Then the guy just turned into a shocking actor. It didn't progress, at least at the rate that you'd expect from someone that seemed to be quite good on screen as a very young child. So it doesn't necessarily keep going in the way that you'd expect it to go.
Okay, so in regards to acting, especially when it comes to movies, acting in films is the least talented form of acting. Theatre is by far the
Oh,
most
I agree with that.
supreme
Yeah,
form of acting. So
I
literally,
do.
you're doing an art form where, number one, if you're a Hollywood darling, like you've been picked for a reason, absolutely, like 100% of the time. When you get to that level, you've been picked. So is it the most talented actors getting the best roles? Generally not, I would say. Generally not. Although DiCaprio is, yeah, he's a good actor. He's a good actor. Yeah, there's lots of good actors. Julia Roberts was in something. Ethan Hawke's is a decent actor too. He was in something that I saw earlier. Your Denzel Washingtons, and all four of those people that I mentioned are 100% shills. Like
Oh,
Denzel, Leonardo, Will, like all of these people that are winning Oscars and Grammys are, picked. And quite often they get given these accolades, not necessarily even because of their acting, but because of the impact that the film had in regards to the narrative and the agenda. Like, I don't know, I don't know, let's just say Avatar, was supposed to depict certain things, to plant certain seeds in people's minds. And because the film was executed so well, the film received awards. Was it really the very best film in 2014 or whatever? There's probably like a better
No, yeah, of
film
course
made
not.
in
But
Denmark that no one ever saw, that could have been like the best film, of that year. And obviously, what's the best film is very subjective as well. It's the handful of people picking who
no, I mean,
receives these
the
Academy Awards. But
the
yeah,
Academy Awards is all rigged. There's actually a movie on, well, a story on how to lose friends and alienate people, which was made into a movie about a British journalist. The Golden Globes are bought and paid for. It's part of the package. It's just a
fully.
and of course, you've got to be a shill, you've got to be a mason, you've got to have 9-year-old kids in your basement to win these awards. That's how it works. Of course, it is. They're all pedophiles by default. 100% of the pedophiles by default. It's funny, like, not to go on a tangent, just take the Harvey Weinstein story.
Correct.
Always came out because people will jump on the bandwagon when the fucking boat is sinking. Everyone wants to step in and relieve themselves of any association or gain something from from the fucking scrappage that's sinking into the sea.
Yeah, they want to get on the
It's-
lifeboat and leave you on the sinking
yeah,
ship.
exactly. All of these people were content working with this man, knowing that he was fucking raping people all the time. And we're not just talking about the actors, we're talking about the cameramen, we're talking about all the production crew, the makeup artists. It's not people when people say it's a scale of, you know, I'm not going to say privilege. I hate that word, but it's a power structure. It's fucking bollocks. I don't care if you're making 40 grand a year or 140 grand a year. If you know someone that you work with is a fucking criminal of the worst degree, and you keep that job, you're a cockroach. You can get a job in McDonald's. You can get a job cleaning a
Agreed.
toilet. This kind of stuff. The reality is people like the money and they want the things that money brings, and they're willing to turn a blind eye. And then, of course, they all jump on it when it's time to gain the benefits. Oh, Harvey's down. Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with that. I knew it all along. Give me some money. That's basically it. I can't remember how we got to that point.
But I'll tell you what, we can go back to another point that you previously made, which etymologically, I suppose, gets to the crux of something that we do agree on when it comes to intelligence, is that it's funny how intelligence and integrity start with the same 4 letters. And I think there's probably there's a reason for that, because I think within integrity, if you have integrity, I think it enables you to unlock intelligence, because being intelligent is being correct. It's about being right. It's about doing the right thing. And if your brain is configured to look for what's right and what's correct and what is true, which is integrity, you're probably going to be more intelligent as a result. Genius, on the other hand, I think is, somewhat more of like a quirk and like a freak of nature. It could be what you said. It could be like past life regression. It could be like what they call akashic records being unlocked within a person.
Actually,
It
yeah,
could
yeah.
it could just also be their brain has just been born in some freaky way that just enables them to, yeah, do more or use more of it than, generally is the case. And then obviously we have the cases that we do know about when people are very inept in other ways, and it's like they've been born with a quirk where they're exceptional at something and absolutely shit at practically everything else around that. So yeah, it's a very broad spectrum, and yeah, once again, we've definitely covered a lot, gone on tangents, and hopefully given I'd like to think 4 viewers at least now, 4 listeners,
I think
a broader point of view.
yeah, we'd have to cover this subject again because I don't think we can keep going a lot deeper. I think with this, but it is one of those subjects where it's going to take hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to
To
decode
unpack, yeah.
ability. Yeah, exactly. So I think another episode, maybe the next episode, we should continue on because the topic I was going to bring up, because you were talking about the guy when you gave the analogy of the World at Warcraft basement dudes. You
Yeah.
know, that be very sparky. But, you know, what's intelligence if you're wasting your life away in a basement with, you know, sweaty pizza down your top? The idea of like what is mental health, like what discerns a mental health problem or a mental health disability, because you could say that about people that are, you know, given the title of genius, and how it could potentially be a form of autism or something like that.
In
You
some
know, how
cases, it
just,
is absolutely.
no, in some cases it is,
Yeah.
but then the question is, what is autism, right? Because this is how and I certainly agree
I
that there are
love
people.
that question. I love that.
Well, no, well, do
Let's
you know?
use episode
You know what they're
16.
doing?
Yeah.
It's now apparently they're creating the system because autism is actually a truth, which is a derivative of many of the products supplanted in our society, the foods given to babies, you know, the injections and all this crap that's
The
funneled into the
injection to number one. Yeah.
100%. But, you know, it's now being made into a law that autism is an offensive word. So remember, like the days where you used to be able to say brain, what was it called? I'm having a, what was it called?
Brain fart.
Something like that.
That's
And
something
now apparently not allowed, teachers aren't allowed to say that. Well, they're calling autistic people officially. This is in all the academic kind of literature, and it is literature because it's all fucking fiction. Um, is neurodivergent. That's the
Yeah.
term that's now being applied to people that are on the spectrum. Instead of just stating the obvious that they're obviously, you know, a little bit retarded, they're neurodivergent now, which is, it sounds, you know, it's a special thing, it's a plus, it's a positive. And obviously there's nothing wrong with being autistic, but it's just this idea that now everything is just acceptable. There is no scale of good or evil, there's no scale of disability, that there's no real such thing as disability anymore. And some people might see that as a good thing, but it's fucking ridiculous. And I'll give you an example just before we fizzle out and end the thing. One of the programs I pretended to study, obviously I went to uni just for the money, and I have no interest in university. It's not a representation of someone's ability at all. It's a way of indoctrinating the next generation. But there was a girl, she couldn't write at all. So she wasn't just dyslexic, she was like beyond dyslexic. She couldn't write, period. She had hands, she could speak, she was very simple, she couldn't write. So she enrolled in the same program as everyone else. She got extra time just like everyone else. Oh, sorry, not like everyone else. She got extra time, unlike everyone else. Although a lot of people did get extra time. It's ridiculous. I say like 8% of the class in tertiary education now in the UK, and probably the US too, seem to get extra time for fucking everything.
Yes,
And she couldn't
absolutely.
write any of her exams. So she had a man writing her essays and all of her exams. And she comes out with a qualification which is accepted as identical to my qualification, everyone else's qualification in that class, and she can't write a single fucking thing. The purpose of a qualification is to discern whether you're able to undertake said subject, right? So for an employer, potentially, you know, they would look at me and look at her, and we appear on paper to be equal. Of course, in an interview, she can't write, so she probably wouldn't get the job. Well, actually, she probably would get the job now because they need to fill a disability quota. But just, you know, the
Correct.
idea, this is how ludicrous it's all become. The idea that, oh, there's no such thing as, you know, as of being flawed. Everyone is equal now. Soon, people with two legs, or sorry, without two legs, will be considered, you know, they won't be considered disabled. They'll be running in the actual standard Olympic Games. There'll be no Paralympics in 10 years. You'll have people in wheelchairs racing against people who are just regular folk. That's where it's getting to. And we were seeing that with the fact that men can compete in women's sports. It's all a mechanism by which to completely destroy society. And I think, yeah, without going on a tangent, we should leave it there, but save it for the next podcast, I think, and explore further what a genie really is.
Indeed. Well, I
And
think
what are you up to for tonight? As it's Friday.
Tonight's Friday. I am thinking about potentially going out. My body's in absolute agony. Yesterday I went to the gym and like I
Really?
finished off like 100 squats, and like my thighs are like a little bit tender. So I might need to like dance that off a little bit, dance off the lactic acid, I think.
Dance off the lactic acid. That sounds like a fucking Channel 4 TV show on a very low budget.
Lactic acid, covering like, I don't know, obscure clubs in random parts of Europe. Yeah, dance off the lactic acid.
Latvian based clubs. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds interesting. I'm sure it'll be pretty busy.
What about this? Oh, are you going to be going to Costa Rica tomorrow?
Going to Costa Rica very early tomorrow morning. Yeah, very early tomorrow morning. So I just had enough of Nicaragua. I don't really like the people here. I don't think they're very honest. So compared to other places, not that it's going to be better in Costa Rica, but it's obviously I'm just heading that way anyway. So I figured I'd just go earlier. And I'm not a beach person, so that's more my kind of thing. It's mountains and kind of farmland and that kind of thing where I'm heading in Costa Rica. So yeah, that's the game plan. And but my ankle's still fucked from the volcanoes, so I think it's getting slightly better, but I think it's going to be like 3 weeks. So they do say 4 to 6 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to basically be out of any kind of physical activity probably until almost time to return to Europe. Yeah, but it is what it is. So that's the game plan. And yeah, I wish the viewers, or the listeners rather, all the best with the Jägermeister and the Sambuca shots.
The Jaeger bombs.
Don't do too many.
Which I don't drink myself. But
what's your Jaeger bomb record? I once did 25 Jaeger bombs in Oxford, just outside Oxford University in Wetherspoons. I know, that was in my prime. That was fucking insane.
Not that. I've probably done maybe about 6 or 7, but then I've probably had like shitloads of gin and tonics and vodkas and whiskies alongside it. Yeah, but I remember there was someone I used to go to my mate, and he'd always come up to me like multiple times during the night with a Jaeger bomb and say, "Yeah, let's drink."
I love Jägermeister, which is weird.
Yeah, I don't do Jaeger bombs. I'm caffeine free now, but yeah, like.
Wait, they're caffeine free?
Yeah, I'm caffeine free. Yeah,
caffeine. Yeah.
So it's got Red Bull in it, or energy drink is what they use. So I might just do like the Jaeger bit. But then, in my older age, I'm less fond of drinking liqueur. So even though I did have a Palinka the other day when I went to a Hungarian restaurant, but that's like a proper liqueur. That's like 44%, and you just have one shot of that. Palinka, it's a Hungarian liqueur. It's like Hungarian moonshine. Yeah. It's Palinka for the viewers. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. Tastes great, warms you up, especially in this season, in this part of the world. And yeah, and there's lots of really good like home and made varieties. It's an art in that part of the world. Lots of everyone's uncle or great uncle or grandparent will normally make their own palinka, especially in like the rural parts of Hungary. So yeah, it's a drink to be enjoyed. It's strong, it can be sipped as well. Like you don't have to just shot it.
44% is just the cap, isn't it? In Europe, that you can't sell anything above that, can you? That's the max proof, isn't it? For spirit.
You definitely can. So in the UK, there's a rum called Ray and Nephew that's 60%, which they sell.
Oh my god, this is so cool. This is crazy. Sorry, there's an ant carrying a fucking giant flower on its back.
Yeah, I think that's a photograph. Flipping out.
Take a video.
Yeah, go on. Take a pic.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it there, and enjoy your Friday night, and we'll touch base after probably New Year's with some gossip for the next sesh.
Yeah, indeed. Happy New Year's, folks, and we'll see you on the other side. See you in 2024.
Yeah. Don't get hit by a firework. Peace out.
Ciao.